Morning. I'm looking at my Foo Fighters collection, all of which are secondhand. A lot of these I've owned previously and bought them new, but lost them or sold them or they got stolen or something like that. So these three here, I got that when I was about 15. I bought that new. I bought that when it came out at 97. And I also bought that. I remember brand new. I've also bought that. So I've owned all of these new. I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But so I've got 7 of the Foo Fighters discography. I think they have, what have they got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They've got 10 albums. I don't own Echo, Silence, Patience, and Grace. And I don't own the 2 most recent ones, Concrete and Gold and Medicine at Midnight. So just go through them and to say a little bit about each one and what I think about it. So the Foo Fighters self-titled first album, released in, was it 95? This is my favorite Foo Fighters album by far. It's a this one is yeah. It's just I guess part of it is that it came out when I was a teenager. It was at a time where I was a big, in those years, the music has a bigger effect on you maybe, or it sticks with you more. But I still to this day, I love this album. Condition is very good. I remember I got this for $4 at a secondhand music store over in the city. And it's basically almost near new condition, if not the same as new. There's the original lineup. So Dave, Pat Smear, Nate, and William Goldsmith, who was the original drummer. So obviously Pat has been and gone. He's gone and he's come back and he's in the band at the moment. Nate is still in the band. William Goldsmith didn't last past this album. And obviously Dave is the main man. Looks so young there, doesn't he? So the albums are the songs I like. I'll Stick Around, Alone and Easy Target, Good Grief Floaty, Weenie Beanie, Oh George, Ecstatic, Watershed, Exhausted. Exhausted is one of my favorite Foo Fighters songs. Full stop. Say Exhausted and Ecstatic are probably I won't say my favorite because there's things I like other albums, but they are really good songs that I like a lot. And this album, I think it's a pretty solid album from end to end. There's songs that I don't like as much, and maybe because they were kind of overplayed a bit in my youth, like Big Me and For All the Cows. I remember there was a live version of For All the Cows. I think it was them playing at the Brixton Academy, and the local music video TV station, he used to play that to death. And I'll Stick Around apparently is the song he wrote about Courtney Love. If you listen to the lyrics, he's talking about someone who he doesn't particularly like. Rehearsed insanity. How can it be I'm the only one who sees your rehearsed insanity? That's a cool line. It's something I've felt in my life sometimes, where you see someone and you're like, how does no one else see what I'm seeing, what this person's doing? Maybe other people do see it and they just don't want to say anything about it either. So who knows? Anyway, Foo Fighters self-titled album, my favorite album of theirs. Second, Color and the Shape. Now this one, you see, doesn't have the back inlay. I only have the cover. Now what happened there is that, I've got 2 copies of it as well. Shite. I owned this secondhand, and then something happened. The jewel case got damaged or broken beyond repair, and so I just threw it away and took the booklet and the CDs and put it into a new one. I can't actually remember what happened fully, but anyway. So Climb the Shape 1997. This is kind of, I guess, where each album seems like their popularity increased a little bit more each time. And this is the album that has Everlong on it, and I'd say Everlong is still probably their most popular song. If not in sales wise, it is. Yeah, actually, probably is in plays as well. I don't know. I think if you looked at their Spotify, it would be the top played song of theirs, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But other good songs on the album. Where's the track listing? I went past it over here. I like Hey Johnny Park, My Poor Brain, Up in Arms, New Way Home. That last song, that's a cool song. I mean, I saw them live. I've seen them live, I think about 5 or 6 times. I saw them when they first came here to New Zealand in '96. They played it with Sonic Youth. That was for the first album. Then they played it here again in 1998, in the very early 1998. I think it was like February '98, and that was for the Color and Shape tour. And when they came out, I remember they first came on stage. Dave and Taylor were both playing drums at the same time, like double drum kits. Anyway, yeah, that was a cool concert. They played at the Auckland Town Hall. I remember. I've got really good memories of that show. Anyway, the last song they played before on the encore was New Way Home, and I remember it was a really good performance. So yeah, I'd say it's probably my second favorite album of theirs, Color and the Shape. Seeing a pattern here, aren't we? So then after that, There's Nothing Left to Lose, the one with the tattoo on it. For me, this album is where we see something emerging with their sound, where they start playing these mid-tempo, for me, nothing songs. But they're often the ones that seem to be popular or fans. So it's probably just my personal musical taste. This album has got some really good songs as well. Stacked Actors is a great song, really good riff. Breakout is a good song. Learn to Fly is, I've heard that enough, and I never really liked the first time I heard it. So Learn to Fly, was our Generator. I like that. That's one with the vocoder effect on his guitar at the start of it. But then we got songs like Next Year and is it MIA? The kind of Aurora, they all blend into the same song for me because they're all so similar. Kind of this, like I said, mid-tempo. I don't know how I would describe them, but it's something that Dave Grohl seems to like. He's got in him. He's got like really good songs, but then he's got these kind of like blur songs. And their albums get more and more increasingly full of them as time goes on. First album, none of them. They were all bangers. But then here they are. This is when they were a 3-piece. It was just Dave, Taylor, and Nate. This was before Chris Shiflett joined the band. I think he joined the band for the tour of this, because that's right. I saw them in 2001. They came here for a big music festival, the Big Day Out, and Chris Shiflett was with them, and that would have been touring this album. He was on stage, I remember, and I remember they opened that show with Blackout. Anyway, so this is not a bad album. It's got some really good songs on it, but it's also got a good half of the songs which I just would skip. Then what was after that? Then it was One by One. And this is the album where they talk about where they almost broke up. They wrote an album, and then it was they felt not good enough, or they were kind of at each other's throats, and then Dave left for a period to go and drum for Queens of the Stone Age, and that supposedly reinvigorated him. But I think the song that kind of was the catalyst for the No, wasn't it? They played a Coachella set. They played at Coachella, and they had so much fun playing in that show that they felt, oh, let's not break up. And then they wrote the song one by one or something. But yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what that album they threw away sounded like, because it must have been pretty pretty bad, because was it just all mid tempo, boring songs? This album's got some good songs as well. There's Dave, mid period Dave. So there's Dave without the beard in the 90s, long hair Dave, just out of Nirvana. Then we come to mid period Dave, 2000s, where he had kind of growing his hair out a bit, but he cut it short. When did he cut? I think he cut it short for Color in the Shape. But in Monkey Wrench video, he had a beard, a goatee in that as well. Anyway, we don't really talk about this. Yeah, okay, there's Chris Shiflett. So he's in the band by this period fully. Nate Mendel and our man Taylor, rest in peace. I remember when I bought this new in when it came out, 2003-ish, I'd say, 2002. I got a free T-shirt, but the T-shirt I got was a Strokes T-shirt, the band The Strokes. So it was like, buy a Foo Fighters CD and get a free Strokes T-shirt, which I think they were just, maybe the shop that was selling just had like these Strokes T-shirts on hand. They'd got for as a kind of, what do you call it, things that were given to them to try to sell albums, and maybe they weren't moving enough Strokes albums, so they decided to use it as a incentive for Foo Fighters albums. Songs I like on this one are All My Life. Low's a cool song. Low's like a really different song for them, because it's like, it doesn't have like the explosive choruses like a lot of the songs have. It's kind of like it's the same intensity the whole way through, which probably doesn't describe it adequately, but it's a good song. Have It All. Times Like These, that's a good song. I like Times Like These. That's kind of just like a good mid-era Foo Fighters hit. It's not boring. It's got a good chorus. It's not like super screamy punk like some of their songs. Then we get to some of them where Disenchanted Lullaby, Tired. I think that's the one where Brian May did. Oh, sorry, Tired of You. Brian May did a guest guitar part on that. Lonely As You. Now, number 8. That's a weird song. The first time I heard that song, it made me feel dizzy, because when it's the intro of the song, it's just Dave with a guitar. What would I do? And it's just strumming guitar. Lonely as you. And then it gets the part where the drums and the bass kick in, and his vocals go on both channels, the left and right of a speaker, of the stereo. And when the drums, the bass, and the doubled up vocals come in, it has this weird effect on me where it kind of makes me feel a bit dizzy, or dizzy is not the right word, but it's cool. It's interesting how they've done it. And I wonder if other people feel the same way, if they have it has the same effect. It's like it kind of triggers something in my brain, some synapse, and it's like, whoop, and it will like kind of short circuit for a second. But I like it. It's a cool song, and it's got a good chorus as well. Kind of builds up to the chorus. And then Overdrive, Burn Away, and Come Back. These are, again, largely forgettable songs. After this was In Your Honor. I don't rate this album. It's a double album, and the idea was one CD as a rock CD and one CD as an acoustic, non-rock kind of softer music, where they had like Norah Jones and stuff like that. There's the band in this period there. Very good condition. I would have got this for about $1 when I bought this, but you can see that it's got excellent condition on the booklet. Looks like it's never been opened before. That first song he wrote, he said, when he played a benefit for John Kerry. This is during the 2004 election, Kerry versus Bush, and Dave was going around, I think, playing like acoustic sets, or maybe the Foo Fighters as a whole, as you know, bands would often do that to support political candidates, and he said he was so inspired by the crowd waiting there to see John Kerry speak that he wrote this song for the In Your Honor, which I think is a bit, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, should I? While we get to this CD, I think I'm finding a good 3/4 of the songs are just forgettable. I guess the big song on this one is Best of You. That's an okay song. It's different, isn't it? I don't even know how you class that kind of rock song. Earnest. I guess the Foo Fighters always had an element of humor and tongue in cheek about their music, like their videos and things like that. They've always been a bit. They released that horror movie. It's kind of like a funny take on horror movies. They did that, I think, a couple of years ago. And Best of You is like it. No, I don't know what I'm trying to say with that. DOA, I think, was a single. And really is, I think, no, Resolve. Sorry, Resolve was the one I'm thinking of. Resolve was a single. And I can't stand that song. They played that live. Last time I saw them in Korea in 2017. They played at a gig with Liam Gallagher, not Oasis, just Liam by himself. And the Foo Fighters were great. They played a good set, but I was just, throughout it, I was like, too many of those mid-tempo songs. And Resolve, I see that's often in the set, and I don't understand how that song is popular. It's just so boring. But anyway, and then the second CD, there are some actually okay songs on that, but I think if I want to hear acoustic music or kind of that in that vein, there's so many artists who do it better. I just wouldn't bother listening to the Foo Fighters do it. It's just really forgettable. It's not necessarily bad. It's just forgettable. Then we Echo, Silence, Patience, and Grace, which I don't have. Wasting Light. Now, I think this album was a return to form. See, it's ripped here. This was a red dot special, which means it would have been about $4 or $5, I would guess. This is the one they did with Butch Vig, and this is the one where Pat came back. I'm pretty sure Pat came back for this one. I don't think he was back with Echoes, Silence, and Patience, and Grace. Bridge Burning, great song. Rope, great song. White Limo, awesome song. I Should Have Known, great song. And the others in between are not bad. I think it's got a much more energy to it. A lot more energy to it. And we just see band shots stylistically represented. Yeah, so there he goes, the guys. There's the band, and there you can see Pat in the foreground. And yeah, this is around the time they made the documentary, career-spanning documentary at that time. It was a Back and Forth, I think, Back and Forth, which kind of covered the inception of the band through to, what's that? Just noticed that fell out. It's a little piece of black. It looks like a negative piece of film from a camera. That's interesting. I'll keep it in there in case it's something that needs to be in there. Covered the band from the inception through the member, change, the lineup changes. So that was really interesting because they interviewed William Goldsmith and Franz Stahl, who are, I guess, the only two members who have been kicked out of the band. And I say that in inverted commas. Well, yeah, they were kicked out of the band, really. I think William Goldsmith left under his own volition, but it was an untenable situation as far as he was concerned, where his drum parts, obviously the first album, Dave wrote completely and performed all the parts by himself. It was recorded completely. He assembled the band after that first album had been recorded. The drummer he got was William Goldsmith, and I think him and Nate Mendel were both from Sunny Day Real Estate, which I talked about yesterday when we talked about the Batman Forever soundtrack. And he obviously felt, I don't know, live, I think it was fine. There was the live performance, it wasn't a problem. But it was when they went to start recording Color in the Shape, William Goldsmith wasn't performing the drum parts as well as Dave would hope. And so Dave was re-recording them and sometimes doing it without telling him, which you can imagine that's not cool. And so William Goldsmith realized that if he was going to be in the band, that's kind of, he would be under the constant pressure of, because, you know, Dave Grohl, whatever you think about his drumming, like some people say, oh, he's the greatest drummer of all time. And he's a good, solid rock drummer with a lot of power in the vein of John Bonham. I don't think he's as good a great a drummer as John Bonham, but I'm not saying he's a bad drummer or anything, but he obviously has a way he wants the drums to be performed. When you're the main songwriter of a song, you have an idea in your head, and if you're a drummer, you have a more refined, this is exactly how I want the drums to be, I want them to sound like this, I want them to have this energy. And if the drummer who you're working with doesn't or can't perform them at that level, then I can imagine that would be kind of frustrating. And the same for William Goldsmith. So he said, well, I'm out. I'm not going to be in a band where I'm kind of the second string drummer and I'm just playing when you feel I can play. Then Franz Stahl came in after Color in the Shape. I don't think he recorded on Color in the Shape. He came in for the tour, but as a full-time member of the band. But when they were in the writing sessions for There Was Nothing Left to Lose, he wasn't gelling with the rest of the band in a songwriting capacity, and I think he was asked to leave. And in the documentary, we hear from both those guys, and it looks like there's still some bitterness on both their parts, where Dave Grohl is kind of portrayed as the nicest guy in rock, and he does seem like a pretty nice guy. He seems very down to earth for someone who's had such, success and celebrity for most of his life. But it also sounds like he's quite, I won't say heartless. What's the word? Where he's just like, he cuts it and maybe he's like, well, okay, that's done and move on. And those guys felt like maybe they deserved more explanation and perhaps more support. But yeah, is that really how much support is? Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, but it's a good documentary, and they go through the different periods and they talk about, like I said, the period they almost broke up, and then they finish off where they're recording Wasting Light with Butch Vig, and it's showing them in they're recording it in Dave's pool house, and Chris Novoselic comes in and records the bass piece for I Should Have Known, which is interesting because when you hear that song, I don't know, I think the producer, Butch Vig, kind of really turned the bass up for a part, because the Nirvana bass, you don't realize how much of a part the bass plays in Nirvana songs. Because Kurt's guitar was so, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. There were times, where Kurt the bass and the drums really were holding down the song, because Kurt would kind of go off and, like, especially in Utero, like those kind of the solos or the kind of distorted, detuned guitar parts where it sounds like he's just messing around almost. But like in the song Radio Friendly Unit Shifter, where the guitar's going all over the show and distorted and feedback, and it's the drums and the bass really kind of anchoring the song for the guitar to kind of come over wherever it wants, which obviously is the job of the drums and bass. But in that song, I Should Have Known, you rarely hear Chris's bass, and I'm sure it's put to the forefront in the production, the mixing, but it's quite cool. And you think, as soon as you hear it, are you like, oh, I recognize that. That's a bass sound I've heard before. Sorry, really rambling here. Last one I own is Sonic Highways. And this one they did in conjunction with a think, HBO series where they would go around the country and record songs in different studios that were seemingly and supposedly, influenced by the music of that area. So the first episode was Something from Nothing, and they did that in Chicago in Steve Albini's. Was that one in Steve Albini's studio? Yes, I'm pretty sure it was. Famously did In Utero, though I don't think they did that in Chicago. I think they did that in Minnesota. But and with that song, just as an example, they took what's the guy, Rick Nelson from Cheap Trick and Buddy Guy. He wasn't playing in it, but they were interviewing him in it to kind of represent a Chicago guitar blues sound. And Rick Nelson, I don't even know where Cheap Trick are from. I think they're from Michigan, aren't they? I don't know. I haven't seen it for like 10 years, so I'm probably completely wrong. But if you listen to the lyrics of that song, they connect to what Buddy Guy was talking about when they were interviewing him about his growing up and learning guitar and coming to Chicago to play in bands. And it's the idea of something from nothing, making a sound, kind of inventing a sound from nothing. But at the same time, it's part of what's come before, which is kind of a contradiction in terms, but listen to the song and you'll maybe get what I mean. I think this album, I like Something from Nothing. Generally, the rest of it is pretty forgettable. What else? They go to Seattle, Austin, Washington, D.C., New Orleans, maybe, New York. Can't actually remember all the places they go, but yeah, I think the documentary is a lot more interesting than the music, to be honest, which isn't necessarily a good thing. And we see produced by Butch Vig and Foo Fighters. The condition of this is pretty good, fine. I remember I got this for $3, so a little bit more expensive than usual. So that is my Foo Fighters collection, and I've talked for a long time here, and I doubt anyone's going to be watching this full thing, but I guess I just kind of like talking about bands, and as much as I've said negatively about them, I like the Foo Fighters. I appreciate them. I've seen them live in concert, like I said, 5-6 times at least. Saw them when I was a kid in like 95, 98, 2001, 2005. Came again 2012, 2017. Now, of course, Taylor Hawkins died, which I mentioned before. He died, I think it was last year. Yeah, it was about a year ago, just over a year ago, under a year ago. And when that happened, I thought they're going to knock it on the head. They've been a band for coming up 30 years, 25, 30 years. They've released however many albums. I felt that Taylor was such a big personality and a big part of the band, and it seemed like such a great companion, maybe not writing companion, but I don't know, creative foil in a certain way to Dave Grohl, that I saw that band as much as Taylor's band as it is Dave's band. Even though Dave is the main songwriter and it's his band, I understand that, but Taylor, it was such a personality that's how it felt for me, and I thought that would have been a good time to end it, out of respect for Taylor, but also because, I don't know, I feel the band's done everything. So I didn't talk about the other two albums. So was it Concrete and Gold, Medicine at Midnight? I've heard the singles from those. Concrete and Gold, the song Run, I like that. That's got a cool riff, a Sepultura style riff. The other one, the other single, again, it just gets that thing that I feel the last, In Your Honor, Echo Silence, Patience and Grace, Sonic Highways, Concrete and Gold, get all those together and you pick out the best songs and it would make a great album. But there's just so much filler on those albums that it feels a lot of times they are just going through the motions with some of the songs they write. Medicine at Midnight, I can't say I've heard anything. I think I heard one song and it didn't sound like the Foo Fighters, and maybe they're completely trying to they're going complete different direction for their sound now. So who am I to say you should break up? But I don't know. I often feel that when a main member's died in a band, I sometimes just wish they'd leave the band, leave the memories alone. And most bands do. No, not most bands. A lot of bands don't. What am I saying? I guess the drummer, it's different, isn't it? It's not like the singer. But, Led Zeppelin, I guess they are kind of the gold standard, where after John Bonham died, they thought, nah, that's it. If he's not here, we're not doing it. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, of course, they've reformed for a show here or there, and I wouldn't mind the Foo Fighters reforming for shows here or there, but to go on full world tours, and which apparently I think they're doing, and write albums, and I don't know, isn't Dave interested in doing something different than just under the Foo Fighters? Because, I don't know. Is the name worth that much? I guess it is. They're a huge band. They're probably one of the biggest rock bands in the world, but I think a lot of that is Dave Grohl's name, and he could go on and do something else and be just as successful. Yeah, and maybe that's me. I'm looking at it in a selfish way. Who am I to say what they should do? But sometimes I wish bands had more respect for their own legacy and their own music, and just could put a full stop on it. And not even when someone dies, it doesn't have to be, but when they break up, when they feel completely creatively spent. Soundgarden ended in 97 with Down on the Upside. And for that long period there, they didn't, they were like, nah, it's done. Our legacy is so great that I don't want to spoil. That's what Kim Thale used to say. And then they came back with the album King Animal, and that wasn't a bad album. It didn't, in my opinion, didn't come anywhere in the same discussion as their Bad Motorfinger and fucking Super Unknown. But I wish they hadn't have done that, to be honest. And then they played live, and I got to see them live. I saw them live in their heyday in 96, 97 on the Down the Upside tour, and I saw them again in 2012. 2012, they played a festival here, and it was awesome to see them live again. My favorite band of all time, Soundgarden. But part of me was like, it keeps the band and the music special if you can say, nah, we're done. We did what we did, and that's perfect. We can move on. And Chris had success with Audio Slave, and he was doing okay with his solo stuff. Obviously, some of the solo stuff was fucking horrific, but he did some good stuff as well. Yeah, I don't know. I guess, yeah. You just have, some of those bands, you feel like you have like a personal connection to, and you think, well, really, who am I to say what they do? They can do whatever the hell they want. Typo Negative, after Peter Steele has died, they always say they would never get back together. But how could they? Peter Steele is that band, was that band. I'm trying to get another vocalist to replace him. Okay, anyway, sorry, I really rambled for this one. But like I said, I'm interested in discussing music. And I've got no one who I could talk to about this. Certainly my wife wouldn't be interested in this, and none of my friends are interested in music in the same way I am. And yeah, hopefully someone out there is listening to this, and maybe has got something they can add to the discussion. Maybe you completely disagree and think that, no, the Foo Fighters keep going. They're still making good music. I don't know. Anyway, that is my secondhand Foo Fighters collection. Like I said, I bought most of these new in the past, but I've rebought them secondhand, and I think that's okay. Thank you for watching. If you have, I appreciate it. Bye.